Hello, hello. Welcome to Beast Over Burden, powered by Barbell Logic. I'm Nikki.
And I'm Andrew.
Yes, here we are. So, like I mentioned on our last episode, we are going to re-release some of our favorites here. And this one, it might be landing between Christmas and New Year, but we know it's still very important. This is one that I got to do with someone who I love to work with, Jillian Ward.
Your coach.
My coach. Yep. She is excellent. But we did an episode a while back on holiday nutrition. And any highlights come to mind?
You guys talked a lot about very practical ways of dealing with not only how to handle the holiday meals and those kind of like specific environments that you get into on the holiday, but also the mindset approach to it and the emotional side of getting through the holiday season. So it's worth a listen, whether you're in the holidays now or just on the other side, because you can apply a lot of the same ideas anywhere.
Totally.
Any situation where you're around friends, family, or your non-normal eating environment.
Vacation. Yeah.
I think you guys have some great tips and tricks.
Awesome. Well, have a good listen, and we'll see you here next time.
You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm Nikki Sims here with the fantastic Jillian Ward again. And we just spent a few minutes reviewing what we're going to talk about today. And there's a lot of stuff we're going to cover, and I'm pretty excited about it. So what the heck are we going to talk about today, Jillian? Jillian's set world records. She's competed everywhere, and she gets podcast stage fright.
We're going to talk about mindful eating. We're going to talk about what motivates us to eat and understand our own behaviors and constructs and thoughts regarding food. But what we're really going to end up focusing on today are tips to getting through the holiday season, how to approach big meals, how to approach a holiday meal, with possibly with friends and family, and any special occasions where you would be eating differently than normal, and how to get through all of that without it showing up on our waistline.
Ooh, that sounds fantastic, because we are heading into holiday season, but also this can be helpful for any time of the year, like vacations or birthdays, and any time where we're just tempted to be like, oh, it's special. I'll just eat exactly what I want for the whole time. Yeah, so this will be great. So to kick it off, you had a really good summarization of who our listeners really are.
So the majority of our listenership agrees that strength training is the key to health and quality of life. But we have vastly differing beliefs on nutrition, and possibly even conflicting beliefs within ourselves about nutrition. And some of us, these beliefs have changed as we started lifting. So I think those of us listening that participate all agree that we need to lift. But, we do, again, very, very, very different things to nutrition.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, the very first step for anybody that wants to make changes is understanding their own thought patterns around eating, nutrition, any behavior related to food.
So it's like in strength, we're trying to get more weight on the bar. We're trying to build muscle, and we're trying to show that we can move more weight on the bar. And there are like many ways you can skin a cat really with different types of programming, but it's like we're really trying to get more weight on the bar and kind of vary that as much as we need to. And then when it comes to nutrition, like, doesn't seem like we have that clear cut of a focus.
Right. Because there's so many other factors. So with our strength training, most of us train, 3 times a week, some of us 4 or 5, some of us twice. And that's once a day. So, when you look, we've got 3 to 5 occurrences during the week, and we know what our program is going to be. With food, with our eating behavior, we're eating, some of us are eating 3 to 5 times a day. Some of us are eating 7 or 8 times a day.
Yeah.
And we're not completely in control of it.
Yeah.
So we're eating with other people. We don't have food prepared. We have some kind of holiday or occasion. And There may be a time that we miss a meal that we didn't intend to. So there's so many other factors that get in the way as opposed to our lifting schedule.
Including what you brought up just a few minutes ago, like the human behavior patterns around food.
Absolutely.
And that's really interesting because we're not robots. There's so much around it.
So much, so much. So in terms of separating it out, like we all know that we want to use food as fuel, but we've discussed several times that food is more than that. So we have social feelings about food. We all have cultural feelings about food, what we've grown up with, what's the norm in our house. I'll give you an example of that. You know, there's a lot of people that grew up in the clean plate club. You finished with what was on your plate. So for me, you know, my grandparents, you know, lived during the Depression. You're not wasting food.
Yeah.
And that got passed down to my parents. And not so much, well, I can't say that because I gave the dog my leftover so my parents wouldn't see me doing it. It was,
You don't want to be wasteful.
but you know, take what you're going to eat.
Okay.
And then eat everything that you took. So some of it was also learning how to put a portion on your plate that you were going to eat and not waste.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's a cultural thing to grow up in a home where you don't waste food. And if it's on your plate, that you eat it.
One of the cultures in my home growing up was if you're going to have a sweet cereal, you have to have a healthy cereal first. And like, is there really such thing as a healthy cereal that comes in a box? Maybe not. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about the different ways people are raised around food. Like you have to eat your food if you want to play, or, you know, you're not allowed to throw anything away. And then even parents take on the responsibility of like, well, the kids didn't eat everything, so I need to finish it off of their plate.
Right. And how is food used in your family? And what is it linked to? Are you a family that eats large meals together, that you link that to happy times and holiday and celebration?
Yeah.
The behaviors that we've watched our parents do with food. You know, did your parents, you know, did they drink diet soda? Did they do these are things that get embedded in us and watching those behaviors. And then you add to that like emotional reasons for eating. You know, some of us eat when we're happy. Some of us eat when we're sad, when we're bored, when we're depressed. There's such a variety of things other than hunger that motivate us to eat.
Some people just won't eat when they're feeling high emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you look at something like depression could cause weight loss or weight gain.
Yeah.
Anxiety can cause weight loss or weight gain. So I think just coming to an understanding of the reasons that you're eating in addition to just it being fuel. And some of those things are like simple to say, I like the taste of food. You know, food makes me feel good. Some of us eat because we're afraid to be hungry. And I've experienced that with nutrition clients. It's like, well, if I don't eat now, I'm going to feel like this in a little while. Or we don't like the feeling of being a little bit hungry.
Ooh, that's a big one right there.
Yep.
It's like we believe that being hungry is scary and wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even like the fear of missing out.
Oh, so much FOMO.
That something came your way. I mean, we've talked about this, like with the Girl Scout cookies.
You have your Girl Scout cookies and I have Cadbury mini eggs stashed in my house.
So I think I would ask everybody that's serious about training nutritional behavior to really evaluate the reasons why they eat.
So how would you recommend even going about that?
I think it could actually be linked to your food journal.
Ooh, yeah.
So if you're keeping both at the same time, well, chances are you've made some alterations if you're keeping some kind of food log. But I think even for a short period of time to maybe identify those reasons. And what you'll find is sometimes you don't even have a reason or you don't know. So I think linking that for a few days or a week in your food journal would be a great idea.
So an example would be like writing down my breakfast of, 2 eggs, half a cup of egg whites, 1 piece of bacon, and like a cup of oatmeal. Would I just ask myself, well, why have I chosen to eat that? And then answer the question?
Yes. But I would say if it's part of your norm, looking at it a little bit more big picture. So that's probably your normal breakfast, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that would need something accompanied. If you had diverged from that and in the morning got up maybe and had, 2 cinnamon rolls or something outside of that. But even to write, so for your normal breakfast, did you eat that? Because to ask yourself, let's say the 2 eggs and piece of bacon, were you hungry? Did you eat because you always eat at that time?
Right.
Did you eat because like that's your breakfast, that's your pre-workout breakfast? So it could be as simple as something like that. Like you ate because this is what I eat every morning. I feel good if I eat this way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what it will identify is the behaviors like when you make an excuse for something, like 2 nights ago was the Marine Corps birthday and we drank a little bit more beer than we probably normally would. And the excuse was that it was the Marine Corps birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So it was either drinking for celebration or rationalizing drinking
Yeah.
by the excuse of celebration.
Okay.
So it's not meant to be critical of the reasoning of why you're doing things, but I think it helps to identify if you see a pattern.
I like that. Yeah, you can really see your rationalization pattern or what emotions are coming up.
Right. Like, you just may be a structured eater where that's where you eat for breakfast. Like, I eat this because it's what I eat. That's my structured eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a better understanding because if you're going to make changes, I think you really need to know the background before making a change.
And then you said to make sure you're not being judgmental about it.
Right. It's not about judging it. It's just about like understanding it. And back to what we've talked about in previous podcasts is an awareness.
Yeah. So it's not deciding that I ate a donut and that was bad. It's just I ate a donut because I wanted XYZ.
Right.
Boom. Okay, cool.
And I mean, you could say, so let's say you said, I ate a donut because I wanted a donut.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds crazy to say, well, why did you want that donut?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying there's no answer that's a bad answer.
Yeah.
So if your true reason is I wanted the donut because it tastes good,
Mm-hmm.
that is your answer. So this is really just about a greater understanding of yourself.
That's cool. I like this. Yeah. Sweet. I feel like that could be helpful for actually taking guilt away. Like, you know what?
Yes.
And making you have more, this isn't a real word, but okayness in your decisions instead of being like, I want a donut and I know it's going to be bad, but I'm going to rationalize it by XYZ. But it makes you feel like at peace with your decisions.
Yes. But you'll also understand the rationalization for behaviors and realize, like I said, 2 days ago, I justified alcohol consumption beyond what I consider my norm for the day based on a celebratory occasion.
Yeah.
So in the same sense, let's say, someone didn't like the election results. They'll justify, well, I drank because of that.
Right.
Are you linking additional calories, alcohol consumption, sugar consumption to emotions?
Yeah. And external events that are really just out of your control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do it. So we're not just speaking right now about, going into the holiday season. Like we're all in a crazy time. I mean, all of 2020 is unique.
Yeah.
In that it's outside of the norm and there's going to be, heightened anxiety,
Well, just, like the holidays are special times, right?
Right.
It's out of the norm. It's easy to make excuses. It's togetherness. There are a whole lot more other kind of traditions and everything around that, but it's just different than the norm. And now, like you were just saying, it is different than the norm.
Right.
So yeah, I think what your learnings are just going to apply all over the board.
Some of us, if we lose the holidays or don't get to gather with families, will use that as a justification to eat.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I think I've done that a couple years. So is there any other exercise that you would recommend for people to kind of learn more about their individual behaviors around food?
I think if somebody was very, very curious, perhaps going into how they were raised about their thoughts about food and where they're at now, and even understanding where that shift came from.
It's like food therapy.
So when I do nutrition plans for people, I try to get a sense of all of this. Did you grow up in a food-centered culture? Like, did you grow up someplace where food was the answer to everything? You had a bad day, just have an extra serving of something. Did you grow up where somebody thought you were unhappy if you didn't eat what was on your plate?
Yeah, okay.
So I think understanding is like, we need to see the whole person.
Ooh. Yeah, so if y'all get to hang out with your families over the holidays, it would be a cool place to like pay attention to like, where's this coming from? Like, we have sweet potatoes with marshmallows. That's just how it is, stuff like that. Okay, cool.
So I'm thinking of getting into how we succeed during the holiday season, but we could apply that pretty much to kind of any season of time, whether that's the pandemic season, anything, a summer vacation.
Yeah.
So the number one thing, and it's what we've been speaking to throughout the series, is just the awareness.
Okay. Yeah.
And like for us, the holiday season, for many of us, the holiday season begins, right around the time of probably Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah.
Yep.
I know some people who on November 1st, they had their Christmas trees up.
Right. And it's all around us.
Yeah.
You go to the grocery store, there are aisles
Starbucks.
of candy
Mhm.
and stuff, like just be aware of how your behaviors change.
Yeah.
So in October, all this candy comes out. What shifts in your behaviors at that point? Do you keep a candy dish around at the house? Or do you have leftover Halloween candy in jars that you go by and you grab a piece? And when you run out of that, do you substitute it for Christmas candy? Do you go from your orange and black M&Ms to your red and green M&Ms?
Yeah. Yeah. What if you never knew that you always had M&Ms in your house? And you just thought that, well, it's Christmas. They're Christmas M&Ms, but it turns out you just always eat M&Ms. I found that everything has just felt the same, since all this started. The seasons run together, the months run together, living and working in the same 1,300 square foot just runs together. It's just the same damn thing every day. And so when fall stuff rolled around, I was like, hell yeah, finally this feels different. And I can totally see how I'm going to use food to be to make stuff feel different.
Yep, I feel exactly the same way. Like pumpkin.
Yeah, give me that pumpkin
It's
stuff.
I'm going to make everything pumpkin possible, or cinnamon flavor. So what I find is a good substitution for just, all of the eating is decorate. Decorate for the occasion or the holiday, decorate your home.
That's a great idea. Pumpkins all over the walls. I think that's a fantastic idea because, I think to some extent eating and baking and everything is totally creative and it's an activity. So now you can use that as that creative outlet and to change your scenery with the different means that you won't eat.
Get a scented candle. If you want the scent of the season in your home, I'll rotate my scented candles. And that's been exceptionally helpful with what you said, where it feels the same all of the time.
Yeah.
Nothing changes, and I'm it could change just something how powerful scent is. I went from fall scents and then I'll probably go into Christmas-like scents and you can't eat it. So there's no calories.
I am going to find some M&M scented candle and I'm going to put that all over my house. You're right. It's good that you can't eat candles. Okay, everybody, don't eat your candles. Or your Christmas tree. I like that.
So other ways that we get creep during this time of year is the addition of liquid calories.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So those liquid calories come in alcoholic and non-alcoholic versions. So, we see things there's eggnog in the refrigerator section, there's cider. So some of us may not drink juices and may not drink, sodas. But where it's the occasion, we'll have a glass of cider.
Yeah.
Or something it's cold out and we're going to have a sugary cup of hot cocoa.
Yeah.
Where that's not normally something we would have chosen.
Yeah.
You go through the Starbucks drive-through and your drink's a little bit more special. And for me, we've talked about it, I've added flavored creamers in place of, I used to do 1 tablespoon of half and half, and now I do 2 tablespoons of a flavored creamer.
Oh boy.
But if you have 1 cup of coffee a day, not a big deal, right? When you have 3 or 4 cups in the morning, between 4 and 5 before you even work out.
That's a few hundred calories.
It is.
Matt and I literally just did another podcast recommending that people drink eggnog if they want to put on weight. Eggnog is not low calorie. And then, even more socializing could mean more pre-mixed cocktails.
Yes.
And usually that has something really sneaky in it, where you might just have a glass of wine or a neat whiskey or something. And now you're drinking this cocktail that has just literal sugar cubes in it. Whoa.
Yep. And look at a pumpkin ale with a sugared rim.
Oh, goodness. I've never had that. That sure sounds good.
No?
Good idea. Yeah, very sneaky. And then what other sneaky things come up? that creep in.
So people bringing stuff. I know a lot of us are not at offices right now or schools, but usually during the holiday season, people are bringing in festive foods all of the time.
Yeah.
And I know for me, again, going back to my cultural feelings about food, if somebody bakes something or makes something homemade, I feel compelled to eat it.
Yeah, because it's a nice offering. It's something really kind.
Right.
Yeah.
But like this time of year, you'll see, I mean, maybe not so much with the pandemic, like something you would all reach and share, like a box of donuts. But typically this time of year, we see a lot more of that stuff.
Yeah.
And we see an increase in social eating occasions.
Totally. And those people who love to bake that stuff, like they might still want to bake that stuff.
Right.
And then where's it going to go? Into their own mouths.
Like I know I personally justify eating junk food if I home make it. Like I made it at home, even though it's filled with sugar and everything else.
Literally watch yourself pour cups of sugar into it.
Right. But it's better. So I know like one of the things in terms of awareness is right now I'm practicing my holiday dishes.
Ooh.
So, ordinarily we also talked about this, that I have a cap of like alcohol and junk food and calories coming from both. And recently I've slipped up because I'm practicing my holiday dishes and I don't know whether I'm going to get to have holidays with family or not.
Yeah.
But it's bringing me joy to make holiday foods. And guess what I'm doing? I'm eating those holiday foods.
I love to bake too, and just not many get-togethers. I've just been freezing it. So now I have this like freezer full of goodies that might still be good in January or, February or something. So it's like, it'll just be there for me. I've meal prepped basically.
That is such a good idea.
Yeah. And so, some of it lasts really well, some of it doesn't. But, man, if you make a brownie and then put it in the microwave a month after you made it, like it's actually pretty good. So yeah, use your freezer. That's right. People are listening to a nutrition podcast.
So we also have this like, there's just thought that everybody packs on holiday weight and that it's just okay.
That's true. Yeah, we just are like, okay, time to get that winter bod going.
Right. We're not going to be in a bathing suit. You hear the terms, it's bulking season. I mean, I've had several clients, even in the last week, it's like, oh, is now a good time for a bulk and stuff. And nobody would ask me that in July.
True.
Right. Is now a good time for a bulk.
Yeah.
So, basically we're inside. A lot of us are less active. The days are shorter and it's normal, to like eat differently, to eat higher fat foods, to eat more comfort food. But we have this as part of our culture, this concept that this is the time of year to let it go a little bit. Because in our minds on January 1st, everything changes.
Yeah, that's right. We're all going to just get right back into it on January 1st. So whatever happens between now and then doesn't matter.
So we allow the last 15 or 20% of the year, like, to get away from us with these things, with the understanding that January 1st, things changed.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, how motivated is somebody? January is the depth of the winter. There's no holidays, there's nothing.
The worst is February for sure. February is the worst month because you've kind of survived January. You're probably fallen off whatever new nutrition kick or whatever kick you were on. The days are still horribly short and it's only colder than January. So it's colder and now summer is actually surprisingly soon and you still have your December bulk.
Yep. And the motivation wanes because you still can't see the light.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So we've conditioned ourselves to allowing this time of year in general or whatever as some amount of slippage because we tell ourselves that things are going to change.
Yeah. I remember, and I think I've actually written this in my logbook, how I've done that in February. It's just like feeling super bloated in February. And I remember that so well that now in December, I know I don't want to deal with that.
Yes.
I'm just not going to put myself in that position. February Nikki is not going to have to deal with December Nikki's sins.
So the real reason that people don't start in November or December is that they believe that it's not worth it.
Yep.
With all of those meals in there. And that kind of leads into approaching the meal. It's like, well, why would I start now if I have this coming up and this coming up and that coming up?
Yeah.
And that's how November and December get completely thrown out.
So, Jillian, I have to admit that sometimes I walk through these imaginary conversations with you where like, I'll have one of those moments where it's just like, this is not where I want to be body composition wise. So I'll actually imagine sending you an email and then I'll imagine your response. Just guess what it would be. You'd be like, oh, well, why don't you become aware of what you're doing? And one of the recent conversations I had was like, oh, well, if I want to cut to this weight class for a jujitsu competition in February, like, should I start doing that now? And I was like, no, don't worry about it. You're entering holiday season. Like, what good is it? So I've literally had this conversation with you before in my head. You didn't know about it, but now you do. So what do you say when someone convinces themselves that it's not worth it during this difficult time of the year?
So oftentimes I will ask somebody to, on a calendar in front of me, scratch out all of the occasions they know that they're going to, I want to say eat poorly, have indulgent meals.
Mm-hmm.
And then even if there's 10 or 15 of them, show them how few that is over the course of those months.
That's really good.
So even if every Friday and Saturday night you have an occasion from now until the end of December, what about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? What about breakfast and lunch? What
Right.
about all of your snacks? So really to get to the understanding that it's a holiday meal or any celebratory meal or big meal is just a meal. It's one meal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spoken about this before, but every meal is opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's opportunity to make a choice. So that one meal should not cascade into a weekend, into a week, into a month, into a season.
Yeah. Thinking about how many good meals you can have between today and the end of the year is pretty awesome. That's a lot of good opportunity.
Right. And you could make progress, even if you're somebody that wants to take off pounds. It may not come at the same rate with these interruptions,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll still get there. Because again, it's identifying, it's not, you don't get fat from one meal of high calories.
You may get a little bloated, but it's true. You don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Totally. That's something that I think, well, we forget.
I think showing people where they think there's just no reason to eat well because there are all these things that are going to get in the way and navigate obstacles, and to look at it differently. And like, those are challenges and those are obstacles, but you could
Mhm.
still get to the finish line. You just got to go around them.
Yeah, I like that. Ooh, what other ideas do you have?
So like talking about pre and post going into either a big meal or a weekend of eating or maybe a vacation, what do we do? So if we want to still be making progress, so for some of us, progress may look like maintenance, not putting on weight. For other ones of us, we're possibly looking to get leaner. What do we do before going into that meal, event, holiday celebration? And what do we do after that? So we know that meal, if it's one meal, maybe not such a big deal, but maybe we're going on a 3-day trip.
Yeah.
Maybe you're somebody that gets invited to 2 Thanksgiving dinners.
Oh, yeah. That's a
Maybe
thing.
there's 5 of them for you.
Yeah.
So it's really identifying that first, how many of those are coming up. And then it is okay to create a deficit going into that time.
Okay.
So let's say Thanksgiving is, because it's all a balance over time. Again, your body doesn't start and stop in any one day. Let's say you're going to have a normal Thanksgiving on Thursday.
Okay.
I would probably go into a slight deficit Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday
Mm-hmm.
of the week. And when I say slight, probably eat 20% less than I normally would.
Yeah, you don't want to be like so hungry that you're just going to start eating all your M&Ms.
And so a couple of reasons for that. So, one of them is we don't want to create a binge behavior.
Yeah.
We want to feel good. Maybe we're not on like a crazy kind of diet, but I would go into a small deficit leading up to the day of.
Okay.
Not necessary, but it's a strategy if we're looking, say, to lose weight,
Okay.
is to be eating well, if you're looking to lose weight, you're eating at a deficit anyway.
Yeah.
But somebody like me where I'm looking, so right now I made myself kind of a promise, was that I weighed myself on November 1st
Mhm.
and I am going to be the same weight or lighter with the same waist measurement or smaller on January 1st.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So that was a commitment. I don't know that I'm going to be able to make progress in that time
Mhm.
because I have a lot of kind of food things coming in the way, but I want to have the same body on January 1st that I did on November 1st.
I like that.
So for me, Thanksgiving week is probably going to look like slightly cutting back on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But for me, that cutting back doesn't need to come from my quality foods.
Mhm.
That might mean giving up my dessert and my glass of wine at night.
Okay.
So that's where it would come from. And then the day of, which is a really, really good question. How do you approach a holiday meal the day of?
Yeah.
So generally, I mean, Thanksgiving is a big one. We may be beyond Thanksgiving by the time this podcast comes out, but we'll talk about approaching a big meal. Do you not eat anything during the day? Several clients said, should I just have a few protein shakes before you go into it?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that large meal is going to contain an abundance of carbohydrate and fat.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
100% of each.
Yes. It may have a bunch of protein like turkey or some kind of meat or whatever, but we know there's going to be no shortage of carbohydrates and fats.
Yeah.
So I personally like to eat something because for me, if I go all day until late in the afternoon and don't eat, not only do I not feel well, maybe I get shaky or a headache. For me, my digestive system is not prepared to handle what's coming at it.
Totally. Yeah. And you'll also show up and have your first glass of wine on an empty stomach, and then you'll just be that girl.
So for that alone, some people are accustomed to like intermittent fasting, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So I don't go into that big meal having nothing during the day. So I want to make sure that I'm well hydrated going into the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, something like Thanksgiving, I'll probably have 2 small meals consisting of protein, relatively low fat, and some kind of fibrous carbs. That may look in the morning like a couple of eggs and a slice of toast. And that may be just like, Greek yogurt and fruit for lunch.
Yeah.
But relatively small meals, but something that's going to keep me sustained, keep me feeling good. And again, like you said, you don't want to go someplace and have that first glass of wine. And like, I've done that and like, I've been done.
Yeah. It's like you're instantly hungover too, and then you just can't enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So generally, if you don't eat anything all day before going into it, it's going to lead to either you're absolutely going to binge or you're not going to be feeling your best. So I personally do not recommend avoiding all food prior to the big meal.
Yeah.
And I think another mistake that people make is coming out of it because of guilt. So too often I see this recurring behavior of after a big meal or a celebration, the person just decides to skip meals. Oh, I'm not eating tomorrow after what I did.
I've eaten enough for the rest of the month.
Right. What ends up happening is kind of a crash and then a binge.
Yeah.
So I do recommend, like, you may feel awful the next morning depending on how you ate and may not be able to eat breakfast in the morning, but resume your normal meal as soon as possible.
Ooh, it might be even be good to have some meals prepped and like in the fridge. Yeah, that would be good. Like you can take all the turkey home with you.
Yep. And I like the idea of even maintaining probably a little bit more of a deficit for a couple of days.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if I had enough dessert that probably was worth a week of dessert, I'm going to try a couple of days without eating it. So my suggestion is a little bit of deficit on the front end, a little bit of deficit on the back end, but not so much that it backfires on you.
Yeah. Yeah. What about like, do you recommend that they do anything active? Like maybe make sure they train that day or go on walks or...
That is a great question. If it's supposed to be part of your training, continue to do it. So there are other ways people try to work off, extra calories. Some of it may be extra exercising. To me, exercise or training should always be to grow you and never to punish you.
I agree.
So it should be to improve yourself and not to punish yourself. So I don't like looking at exercise as a punishment. It doesn't mean you can't add some extra cardio in a few days to follow, to balance a deficit out. But I would do whatever normal training you have.
Okay.
But I do recommend going for a walk and eating like you know that you're going to go for a walk. So if you sat down to eat your holiday dinner and I said to you, guess what? 30 minutes after you finish that meal, we're going to take a 2-mile walk.
So what you're saying is make sure you wear stretchy pants.
That too. But you may eat differently.
Yeah, totally.
So I think going for a walk is amazing. I think not only that it gets you away from the table and gets you away from the food.
Yeah. There might be someone that you want to really catch up with and you can go on a walk with them.
Yep.
And so it's like another opportunity for some quality time. Or maybe you need alone time.
And most of us eat even after we're full. And we don't understand why we do it. Back to understanding your food behavior. I did that last night. We served ourselves 2 desserts because the slice of pumpkin pie that was left was not what I considered adequate. So rather than eating a smaller piece of pumpkin pie, I had a second dessert on my plate.
Totally makes sense in the moment, right?
And rather than stopping after one and evaluating that pumpkin pie was in fact enough, I went on to eat two. So what I'm saying is I still make mistakes.
Yeah.
We all do. You evaluate it and you kind of move on from there.
Yeah.
So yes, I definitely advocate going for a walk on the day of and sticking to whatever your normal training is.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Like you said, like you want to still feel like yourself, and training is probably going to make you still feel like yourself.
Yes. As much normal behavior on days that are big eating, as much normal behavior as possible, I think is what's best.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things you could do is to set rules for yourself, especially if you have a lot of occasions during this time.
Ooh, okay.
And the way that should occur, your rules should be triage. What is your biggest downfall? So again, back to the beginning of our conversation is understanding your food behavior. So is your biggest downfall the desserts? Is your biggest downfall that you eat like 12 portions of carbs at your holiday dinner? Is your biggest downfall going to be the drinking? So I think you start with a thing that is your biggest offender. And with food, it's a thing that's probably providing the most calories that you don't need, and set a rule for that. Whether that rule is, I'm going to choose something simple. It could be like there's 5 different kinds of bread at the table. I'm going to get one portion of that, one portion of another carb, and the rest of my plate is protein and veggies. The rule could be I have 3 alcoholic drinks tonight. The rule could be I get 1 dessert. And if I want something else, I'll ask for a piece to bring home. And it doesn't have to be all of those things, but identify the one that is so give for you. What would be your downfall?
I was just thinking, it's definitely that I continue to eat after I'm full on holidays. Like I'll just be like, oh, is there candy around? Let me eat that candy. Is there another piece of pie? Like, let me eat that pie too, even when I'm just like totally uncomfortable.
So it's understanding, where does that come from? Is it fear that if you don't eat it, you won't get it? Like that you're going to miss out on that food? So like one of the things that I suggest is if you don't get to have those foods because you're full, is packing those foods to go.
Yeah.
So let's say you packed 6 different things to go, eating all of those 6 things, maybe you don't want to sit down on binge on them, but if you put them in your freezer and then spread them out over a couple of weeks in reasonable quantities, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So a lot of us do have the fear of something like that. And we're conditioned to just sit and eat.
Yeah, it's totally because it's just like, it's a special day. I get to do what I want on this special day.
For instance, do you make a larger plate at a holiday meal?
No, but I'll usually have like 2 plates. I don't pile it on because I know I'm going to eat more.
So if you look around at the plates around you, do you agree that most people pile it on?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not one of those, but I'll just have, what did you call it? A volume or intensity?
You're an,
yeah.
Yes. You're an intensity eater.
I'm an intensity eater, 100%. But then on those days, I'm also a volume eater. But yeah, with the idea of, just bringing it home with me means that I can integrate that specialness in a way that still works for how I want to eat. Like, oh, I don't want to miss out on these whatever desserts. I'm like, okay, well, I'll still have them as a dessert later this week and it'll still feel like a special thing, but it fits within my realm of goals, right?
Right.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks for walking me down that street.
So what you do is I would recommend somebody make a normal size plate. So on a holiday, a normal size plate may look like opting out of a lot of the things and having more of what you like, or it may mean tiny sample size portions of everything.
Oh, yeah. I like that idea.
Right. So, you want to try all the different kinds of potatoes and some of the stuffing. So like a sample size portion of everything equivalent to 1 portion if you had only had 1 choice. So I recommend making what would be a normal size plate.
Okay.
For your first plate. Which is hard to do. And then waiting before you go back.
Okay, Julian, I will try that. I like that.
So 15 minutes would be, so it should be at least 15 minutes. There are some families that eat and 30 minutes later are on the couch.
Yeah.
So you may not have an opportunity to sit for another 15 minutes, but I would recommend normal size plate of food, wait 15 minutes, and then you can go back for seconds.
Okay, sweet. Deal. I've in the past liked to cook something that I know feels healthy to me. So like a side dish or something that I know isn't just full of butter, or I'll make sure I bring like a salad or some sort of vegetable that I know if I put on my plate, it'll feel like a good decision.
That is such a good idea, because I think holiday meals, we take foods that are normally low calorie, low fat, and they are laden with fat.
Yeah.
So take a look at vegetables that, whether it's creamed spinach
Mhm.
or some kind
Brussels
of like
sprouts.
green bean casserole
Yeah.
or Brussels sprouts with bacon. So we take something that would normally take up space on our plate.
Mm-hmm.
And now, that same thing that may have been 40 or 50 calories is now 400 or 500 calories.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy vegetables and want to make a plain vegetable and have that as an option, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And then like bring fruit too for dessert. So if you're like one of those snackers like I am, be like, oh, well, instead of snacking on all this, like I'll snack on some berries. Just some thoughts.
I love those thoughts. And I've also learned not to impose my healthy option on everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
So
guys, I've made a huge vat of steamed spinach that has no flavor in it.
I don't remember, because we may have just talked about it before we got on the podcast. Did we talk about the volume and intensity eaters?
No.
Okay.
Just a second ago. But go into that, because I love your idea about this. This is great.
So I like to think of eaters in different categories, one of them being volume and intensity eating, and understanding where you fall in.
Okay.
So a volume eater is somebody that likes a lot of food. And when I say a lot of food, we're not talking about calories.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about an abundance of chewing, a large portion of something.
Okay.
Somebody that may like an extra large salad that takes them, 20 or 30 minutes to eat, or could sit down, eat like a plate of vegetables.
Yeah.
Where, the most important part of it is how much they get.
Like how much time they get to spend with that food.
Yeah, and how much time and how much volume of the food.
Okay.
So somebody that may sit down, so a volume eater is somebody that may sit down and eat tons and tons of plain air pop popcorn.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's not covered in butter and oil and all that other stuff, but just to be able to continue eating it, the experience of eating.
Got it.
And then, so that may look like, let's talk about ice cream. That may look like eating an entire pint of a low calorie or low fat ice cream. Like I'm going to eat the pint of Halo Top, which is nothing, because I could probably put down a half gallon. But anyhow.
Sounds like a challenge.
But it wouldn't be Halo Top. But no offense to Halo Top.
No.
So, and then it's what I call intensity eating.
Mm-hmm.
So where you kind of go right for the highly caloric, very, very tasty, generally higher fat stuff, which may be happier having like a scoop of Haagen-Dazs or say a premium ice cream with a very high fat content, and we never, ever, ever touch the Halo Top.
Yeah, because the taste is so good.
Right.
Yeah. I'm literally thinking about this Haagen-Dazs ice cream that I have in my freezer right now.
So they go in for it like, they want, a big giant breakfast. They don't need the big giant breakfast with tons of fruit or tons of this and stuff. Like they may want like, one sausage, egg and cheese biscuit or a buttery croissant, generally higher fat content and higher calorie content, but less volume of food.
So really, it's like you could eat the same amount of calories, but either in some cases, be a volume or an intensity, but the same amount of calorie is consumed.
So recognizing this about yourself, and there's no right or wrong about being a volume or intensity eater, and those things even change. And you could kind of be a mix. You don't need to fall on one side or the other of it.
I know I've definitely been both over all this. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Generally, when people start reducing calories, so when somebody is in a deficit, I will often see somebody going from being what I call an intensity eater to being more of a volume eater.
100% have done that. Yes. Yeah.
So, which is totally normal, but understanding these helps shape your nutrition plan. So if I'm working with somebody and deciding on a snack for them, am I going to give them a high intensity snack, like maybe, a piece of cheese and some nuts where they get very little bit of it, but it's super calorie dense? Or, am I going to give them fresh cut veggies, a whole bunch of it with some hummus or something? And really, it's just understanding back to like what drives you with your eating.
Yeah. Why do you enjoy eating certain things? Yeah.
Yep. So in addition to like what we talked about, like a volume and an intensity eater, there are like some of us that pick and graze. So tell me a little bit about your eating throughout a day.
Throughout the day, I generally will have mostly meals, except for around snack time. Then I'll graze on fruits, nuts, vegetables, snack grazer. Then I'll have meals. And then at nighttime, I'll have a meal, but then I'll also graze again on desserts.
So how many times a day would you say you have an eating occurrence?
3 meals, and then probably like another 3 or 4 snack grazing sessions, I'll call them.
So you're eating 7, 8
yeah.
times a day?
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
So that's your behavior. Then you see people that what I call are feast and famine.
Mm-hmm.
They could go most of the day. It never occurs to them to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a giant meal.
That's what I turn into when I travel. Like, because, I'm just, I'm in my own damn home all day. So it's like, I can have 8 meals. But then, yeah, when people travel, it's just like, well, you're going to be on a plane, or you're going to be moving through airports trying to get from one place to the other, or you have to eat with people at a certain time. So it's interesting having to switch gears from, your natural habitat to a new environment.
And I think to kind of look at all of that and understand that there really is no right or wrong way to go about it. It's doing the best within the confines of what works for you. And it's very hard to take somebody that goes from eating once or twice a day and have them eat 8 times a day. They're not going to sustain that.
Yeah, totally.
Or if you take somebody that eats multiple times a day and tell them, oh, you should try intermittent fasting and to eat twice a day.
You're like, whoa, Jillian, you're saying I'm supposed to be hungry at some point? Like, no, thank you, ma'am.
So that's what I want to point to is there's so many different ways about it. And we go back to full circle, what we talked about in the very beginning of all this is it really comes down to the quantity of food that you're eating, meaning calories, and the quality of the food, no matter how you approach it. Whether you are going to be a volume eater, an intensity eater, whether you're, a grazer, or whether you're feast and famine, but just looking at the bigger picture.
Ooh, I love it. Whoa, it just came all full circle. Whoa.
Ideally, so rather than feeling like we should be, is you could do feast or famine, or you can graze all day. I mean, I would start somebody and recommend, probably 3 regular meals and 1 or 2 snacks.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I love the idea of being okay with whichever one you're doing, but just having some awareness of where it's coming from.
Yep. And just making the best choices within that. Because I've seen it all work. I've seen people do intermittent fasting and have great results. I have been myself on a contest prep bodybuilding diet and eaten 7 or 8 times a day and had great results.
And also maybe one that worked for you well before isn't going to work well again this time. And that's fine. Something else will probably work just great.
So there's what works, like what's actually going to work science-wise. And the other thing is what we're motivated to and like feel some kind of motivation to stick to.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Honestly, the more I've learned about nutrition and even just our conversations, it's made me, I don't know if demonize is the right word, but I feel like as much as I think about nutrition, I feel like my relationship with food is generally pretty healthy in the sense of like, if I do this, it doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody, or it doesn't mean that I'm worse than I should be. It's just, you get to enjoy food. And it's like, the more you learn about it, the more you learn about what's behind it, the more you allow yourself to enjoy it. And it's really fun.
Yes. Yeah. And it's okay to enjoy food. And that's another thing that I think we tell ourselves when we start looking at it as food is just fuel. You shouldn't have attachments to food. It's not true. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying food and still get results.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun life.
So what would you say? So I've told you that my goal right now is to have had the same body on November 1st as I do on January 1st and not put on any holiday pounds, but at the same time, not slide backwards.
Yeah.
So what is your goal?
Oh gosh. I don't really weigh myself a lot or do waist measurements, but I really go by what hole I'm using in my belt and by how many abs I can count on my stomach. Like when I can see that 3rd ab, I like how things are feeling. But if I can only see like 2 and only like 1 ab, I'm not happy. So for me, it's like making sure I don't fill out my bigger belt hole in January. And then if I can keep that 2nd ab visible, I'll be pretty stoked. That's okay, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, I would say the waist and the weight measurement for me are just a quantifiable marker.
Oh, yeah.
But I use subjective things the same way you do. Because at the end of the day, my waist measurement and my weight don't matter if I'm not happy with what I see and if I don't feel good. But I use that because I can't draw that into question. Because we talked about something else, like I have a house that I go into one room and I look tall and thin, and I go into another room and I look short and fat. It's like funhouse mirrors. And I don't know if the real me is somewhere in between, but my feelings about how I look could change based on lighting or a mirror.
Totally.
So I like to have those things that are just metrics that are going to be the same every time.
I like that. I always feel pretty good when I'm hanging around like Matt Reynolds and Andrew Jackson because I'm like so small. But then I'll like hang out with the girls I do jujitsu with, and I literally like 40 pounds more than all of them do. And I'm just like, wow, I'm a Yeti. What? You have to have your own little metrics.
So relate to that. I have a very similar thing is when I'm around my sister.
Oh, yeah.
So I know I've also talked about her before, but we're close in height. We're about 1.5 inches apart in height. I'm about 1.5 inches taller. And I outweigh her by at least 40 pounds.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to take a picture next to you. I love you.
Like, can you stand like 3 feet in front of me and then I'll stand 3 feet behind you? Yeah, we have to have our own little awareness bubble. That's so funny.
But it also means I get to eat more than her.
Yep. To feed those guns. Well, awesome. This has been perfect because not only does it apply to holidays, it's just anything special out of the ordinary, which it's good to have to look forward to. So you want to be able to look forward to that without beating yourself up over it. So, man, thanks for all that. Okay.
This was very fun.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your food. Everything you do is fine.
Thank you guys for listening if you've made it this far.
Yeah. All right. See everybody later. Thanks, Jillian.